Hey guys, a question I get a lot is how often should I clean my gun? And that's always a tough question for me because I generally don't clean my guns. And that's not the answer most people want to hear. They want a definite number so they know what to expect. And the thing is, for the majority of people that are going to shoot, a few hundred rounds through the gun in the life of the gun, it probably never needs to be cleaned. You'll need to do rust preventative depending on how it's stored, how it's carried in your environment. But as far as the internal working parts, yeah, you probably don't need to clean it. Some people like to clean their guns and they'll clean them religiously each and every time they shoot the gun. And that's more about prolonging the enjoyment of the gun handling experience. So I spent some time collecting all my stuff. I'm going to take this gun and this ammunition. I'm going to try out these new magazines and this new scope. And you anticipate the range. And then you get out there and you do the shooting and all that's great. And then you come home and I want to extend the experience a little bit further. So let me strip the gun just totally apart down to the smallest little piece and thoroughly clean and polish and love my gun before I put it back together and put it back in the safe. Now, one thing I learned at gun sight back in the early 90s is the instructors would clean their guns at the shooting range, and immediately after they cleaned the guns, they'd shoot them. Like, well, it's kind of strange. You clean the gun, now you're getting it dirty again. And they'd only shoot a magazine worth through the gun. But they're like, we know the gun works, we take it apart, we put it back together. How do you know it works at that point? So they shoot them to make sure that they are still functioning, which is a good point. But you don't necessarily have the opportunity to clean your gun at the range. But if you do, smart idea. Clean your gun at the range, then put a magazine through it, make sure it's still functioning. Side note, I did a detail cleaning of my Colt Commander with the Series 80 firing pin safety system, and you can assemble that wrong. And I walked around for a week with the gun not functional. The slide worked, hammer worked, everything worked except the hammer or the firing pin wouldn't get unlocked. So when you take the gun apart and put it back together, are you sure it's going to function? One way to be sure is to actually try it. Alright, I have a Ruger Security 9 here, slick little pistol at a great price point. I bought this about a year ago as a student loaner gun, and it's been through probably 8 to 10 classes now as a student loaner gun. I have not cleaned this gun since I've owned it. So let me bring the camera in here, let's open it up, take a look inside and see just how dirty a gun is. So let's see, 8 to 10 classes at about 60 rounds each. You can do the math, but somewhere around 500 rounds of ammo through this gun as it sits now. So let's take a look. Alright, Ruger Security 9, about 400 or 500 rounds through without cleaning. Let's take a look. So we're going to pull the magazine out, check the chamber. Let's physically check that the chamber and the magazine well are empty. And I believe we have to pull this pin out. Do we need to take the slide like that, I guess? Pull the pin, slide comes off, and you can see there's some schmutz in there, right? And see how well you can see that. Alright, so a little dirty. And the inside of the slide, let's see, right about there. So a little bit dirtier, not too bad really, considering. Modern ammunition is pretty clean too. Let's take a look at the frame. 500 rounds, which is probably more than most people shoot in a lifetime through their gun. This gun does not need to be cleaned. If you want to clean it for fun, that's cool, but it doesn't need to be cleaned for functioning. Now, let me put it back together for a second. Let me show you something. While I'm doing that, there's a famous instructor in New York. He passed away not too long ago, and he had a bunch of loaner AR-15s. And as a test, he deliberately didn't clean one. And it had somewhere around 50,000 rounds through it without cleaning, and it was still functioning. Now, while he wasn't cleaning it, he was lubricating it. So, if you want to make sure the gun's functioning, or gonna function, probably a good idea to lube it. So, the slide goes back and forth on rails. So there's these little grooves in here. So a drop of oil in those will go a long ways to making sure the gun functions. Where the hood of the barrel and the slide mate is another place for a drop of oil. And that's pretty much it. That will probably ensure the gun will reliably function, and you're done. However, if you want to clean your gun, by all means do. You don't have to go out and buy a fancy gun cleaning kit. You know, if you want to spend the money, you can, but I think there's a few things you need, and you probably have them laying around at home. One, you're going to need a solvent, so you can go ahead and buy a purpose-made solvent for cleaning guns, or you can just get some alcohol. Now notice this says 91%. A lot of alcohol is 70%. That's got too much water in it, so you don't want to use that for cleaning your guns. So if you're going to buy alcohol, make sure you get 91% or 90%, so that it'll evaporate quickly. All right. So this you'll use to soften up or loosen the dirt. Now once you've loosened up the dirt, you're going to need to do things to get rid of it. So you're going to want a toothbrush, and that will allow you to get into those various places and scrub the dirt away, loosen it up. For tight spaces, you may want to use Q-tips. Those are great for getting in on the slide rails and the other hard to reach areas. This is all stuff you probably already have at home. Now, toothbrush, I will say this is an M16 cleaning brush, and I do like it because it has a separate row on the one end. It's just a single row of bristles, and that's nice for getting into the slide rails. However, you could take a toothbrush and just get rid of all but one rows and have a specialized toothbrush for that. Once again, you don't need to necessarily buy specialized equipment. Now, once you've got things loosened up, you're going to need to mop up the dirt. So you're going to need some cloth of some sort. Paper towels work fine. Shop towels work fine. Old t-shirts work great. I stick with 100% cotton. Pillowcases, bed sheets, as long as it's 100% cotton, is fine. So you can get in there and wipe up the get into the camera there, wipe up the dirt that you've loosened up. And once you've looked around and you've got all the dirt that you can out of it, just put the gun back together with a little lubrication and you're good to go. So it's pretty obvious, what's dirty. You'll see the dirt, scrub it, use the lubrication, the solvent, and something to loosen the grime with the solvent, and then mop up the grime with a cloth, and then put the gun back together. Now when you're putting it back together, you'll probably want a little bit of lube. Now you can get a specialized lube The only reason I like this, well, I like it for two reasons. One, it's got Teflon in it. So that's obviously Teflon is slick, which is good. What I really like about it though is the applicator, and this allows me to very precisely put oil where I want and leave oil off where I don't want. But I'll tell you, you can't really beat motor oil. Think about what motor oil does. It works in hot environments where metal is rubbing against metal in high temperatures. Sounds an awful lot like a fire alarm. So it's certainly acceptable to use the oil that you use in your engine. I've actually had times when I was stuck for lubrication and pulled the dipstick out of my car to get a few drops of oil out to keep my AR running. So motor oil, perfectly fine. Problem is, you know, how do you apply from this large thing? But you know, put it in a smaller container, or save your empty containers of smaller oil, fill it with motor oil, and apply it that way. So, oiling the gun to put it back together. Look for the shiny parts, right? So you can see that around the muzzle there's a shiny spot. That's where the metal is rubbing against the slide. There's another part right there, shiny part. So look for those shiny parts. That indicates where there's metal rubbing against metal, and lubricate them. So a little bit of oil on those spots. Put the barrel back in your pistol. Peter, how do I take my pistol apart? Look at the manual. Watch YouTube videos. The real important thing is make sure the gun is empty. Alright, put this recoil spring back in. Now, where the slide works on the frame, on the slide rails, I want oil on that too. So I'm going to put, see if I can get in the frame here, a drop of oil on the slide rails. And look for any other shiny spots where the hammer gets pushed down by the slide. Needs a little, and that's it. Put the gun back together. Don't force it when you're putting it back together. If it doesn't want to go, something's wrong. And once it's back together, make sure that everything is operating smoothly, and wipe off any excess so that you don't stain your clothes and get into a fight with your wife when she does your laundry, if you're lucky enough to have a wife that does your laundry. And you're good to go. Alright guys, I'm Peter Burlingame of the Self-Defense Initiative. Thanks for watching. Be safe out there.